being in Rwanda for 2 weeks, there's something very special about it. The first thing is all eyes are on you because you are looking very different and you're in a huge group. And the second thing is you're a very different person once you get there. One thing a leader told me before getting to play with the kids, he said, the kids can tell if you don't actually love them. Think about that. The kids can tell if you don't actually love them. Just hearing that just broke my heart. Thinking, who wouldn't love these kids? Who wouldn't want to play with them? Who wouldn't want to dance with them? All these things. The first day being there, I just found it so easy to love them. So you just be with them and dance for 3 hours straight in the sun and just no communication, but still able to love them. Coming back, though, was so hard because at first I wanted to take kids back with me, but I couldn't, and also I found it really hard to love people here well. It was hard to be intentional and be present with the people I already have relationships with, and just to continue growing those relationships. But coming back, I also learned the way we love matters. When we're intentional, it matters. This semester I read a book called A Stone of Hope. It's a memoir about a boy who came to America from Haiti to get a better life, to be better off, to be not neglected and to be loved. But unfortunately, he was not loved. He was still neglected and everything. With that, he could tell that nobody loved him. He could tell that nobody wanted to be with him, and that led him to being very violent, led him to getting into drugs, and eventually being incarcerated. Not being loved affected his life and led him down the wrong path. So you see, the way we love matters. People can tell, and it's very noticeable. When we intentionally love someone, that can affect the way their life is played out next. It's lived out in this book very well. After meeting a lawyer for child services, he says, "It was how she said it, the eye contact, asking questions about my life, listening to my answers, the tone of her voice, the language of her body. She treated me like an individual, not as a case or a problem to be solved." You see, here's an example of what being intentional is like. When we sit up and we listen and we actually want to pursue someone's heart, it does something good for the person next to you. You can think of it this way. When a kid wakes up every morning seeing their mom praying, they will soon catch on seeing the importance of prayer. Or a kid seeing their dad worshiping, they'll see the importance of worshiping God. Or even a 7th and 8th grader, seeing the importance of sitting up in chapel and actively listening. But once the mom stops praying every morning, the kid will think there's nothing left to pray for. Or the dad stops worshiping, there's nothing left to worship. Or it's okay to sleep in chapel later. Our actions carry so much weight, and the weight is so heavy right now. We have to be intentional with each and every person we come in contact with. When we live intentional lives, that leads to being loving intentionally and being loved intentionally. Loving is a way to remove ourselves. While in Africa, there was about 30 of us, and of course we didn't know each other. At points, it was super awkward. But one night, we had a Devo around the fire, and we had a time to break off and to meet with different people and talk about things. So I met with this girl named Lainey, and I didn't know Lainey before, but she just pursued me, and she wanted to get to know my story. We talked about life, we talked about God, we talked about the future, the good and the bad, and you could tell she was so interested with everything I was saying. She pursued me in a way that I haven't really felt being pursued before. She was so intentional with me. And because of Lainey, I made better friends through that trip because when she was intentional with me, I learned to be intentional with others. I've said intentional a lot, but what does that really mean? So my definition for intentional is purposely removing yourself and your pride to lift others up and ultimately reflect who God is. You see, God does this really well, mostly because he's God, but also when he was living here as Christ, he was so intentional with every person he came into contact with. He was loving intentionally with the woman when he wept for Lazarus. His words were intentional when the adulterous woman was about to be stoned. And every action was so intentional with everybody he came into contact with. And after being in contact with those people left a better person. They left to pursue better lives. You see, when we love intentionally, others will also love intentionally. Being a senior, you do this terrible thing called the solo. And the solo is when you set out to the woods by yourself for 8 hours with no communication, one comfort item, and little food. Problem for me. And So they gave us these journals and writing prompts, and we wrote about what we wanted. And so I wrote a lot about what I wanted my senior year to look like and what I wanted Capstone to look like. There I had the 3 things I loved laid out in front of me: children, behavior, and missions. The hard part was finding a way that they all connect, how they all fall into one category, and how they ultimately reflect who God is. Throughout the year, I was stumbling over hurdles and obstacles of finding a way. How do these connect? But by December, they all just kind of fell into place. You see, children weren't always my favorite thing. They were probably my least favorite thing, and mostly because they remind me of myself. But I found them really annoying. But as I started working at a daycare and helping at church with Kids Rock and Sunday services, they found a special place in my heart. I was so admired by their innocence and the way they pursued people and the way they loved each other, no matter who it was, no matter their religion, no matter their race, no matter their background. They loved no matter what. And I wished to be like that. I loved how they did things when people were looking or when they weren't looking, and I wish I could do the same. But yes, I do get embarrassed because of the stupid things. God also has a heart for children. As the disciples were trying to push the children away, God says, no, keep them here. It's not only degrading to them, but it's dehumanizing yourself because they have more to offer this world. But we don't realize it because we limit them to their age. We limit them. For my capstone, I wanted to focus on behavior and the trauma the kids face, the way they change due to certain circumstances that they faced when they were younger. That was my first problem, was that I limited kids to 5 to 10, around that range. But I didn't realize that it's not just kids who change to certain things, but we all change to certain things. We will all change. Jim Germain, the same author of A Stone of Hope, said, "Kids' brains are wired towards instant gratification." Again, I limited kids to age of 5 to 10 for that, but here I am, 18, and I still need instant gratification. You can ask my parents, you can ask my friends, you can ask my coaches. I still need it. Again, I learned that you can't limit kids to their age, and they have so much more, but if we just slow down and if we listen, we might learn something from them. I sat down for an interview with Mrs. O'Keefe in the fall. We talked about the technical stuff behind adoption and foster care. I then asked a question: how did Josiah, her adopted son, first show love when he first came to their home? If you don't know Josiah, that's your first problem, because he's one of the most loving, kind kids you will ever meet. He's full of joy, and I'm just like, I just want that much joy that you have. She told me he was never not loved, but he was just neglected. And I think a lot of the times we put the two together, and we confuse it, and we don't realize they can be separated. She told me that he had an abundance of love when he first came, and it's due to his mom and the people who raised him for the first 6 years of his life. You see, this is a perfect example of what loving can do, and the potential kids have. When they receive love, they take it and they pass it on to others, and it's so good. Children are more than just rambunctious little people, but they have something to offer this world. So again, if we just slow down and we sit down with them, we might learn something from them. One thing I misunderstood about behavior and attitude was that everyone will change due to it. It's not limited to a person with traumatic experience or something happening in their life, but we will all change to adjust. This year I've been watching everyone, as weird as that sounds, but we all change to what time of day it is, what we just ate, who we just came in contact with, where we are, even what we're wearing. We all change. I have also changed myself. At this point in my life, I just didn't care. I was a senior, and I'm leaving in a couple of months, and I was like, well, I don't care anymore. It's not my problem. The only thing I cared about was basketball, thanks to Dave, and it was obvious. I pushed school to the side, pushed friendships to the side to focus on that one thing. Again, we all change to adjust to our environment, to fit in, and to feel loved by certain things. Last semester, I worked with the junior hires for my service, and one thing I asked them was, what is one thing you've prayed for that you feel like isn't getting answered? I was expecting very junior high answers, and expecting, I want a new iPhone, or I hope this boy likes me. My expectations were obliterated. The responses I got were heartbreaking. I was so ignorant to what was going on in the junior high, in my D group, in the school I lead, or at least attempt to. It broke my heart reading those, just to see that those people go through hard things and that I don't understand, or I chose not to understand. Things like, my friend committed suicide, my friend has cancer, my parents are fighting, and if God is so good, why do I have depression and anxiety? Hearing those broke my heart because they just want to feel loved. They just want to be accepted. They want to be there, want people to be there for them. But again, I was so ignorant to it. They just want to escape. It's interesting because my missions trip to Africa was the same thing. I wanted to escape the certain relationships that I had here at home, or the certain things that were going on. They just want someone to support them. They want someone to guide them. They want someone to love them. These children of God are asking and begging for something more. You see, behavioral changes isn't limited to a person with trauma. We all change due to it. The mission field wasn't something I was fond of. Growing up, my grandma would come up to me and be like, I really want you to be a missionary. And I go, no, Grandma, I don't want to be one. But she still pushed as hard as she could. My friend Emily went to Rwanda before I did, and she came back such a great person, someone I wish I could be, and I admired it so much, so that the next summer I went to Rwanda also with her. I learned a lot about missions. I learned about what is behind each mission, what heart is behind each mission. I learned also that where my feet take me, that is where my mission field is, and I can't limit missions to a third world country. I can't limit missions to a place that seems a little bit more broken than ours, because we are all broken. I can't save the world, it's already been saved, but I can open its eyes to see, to be loved, to be loving just like we are all loved. Now, how do all these connect? That was the hard part also. Each one cannot be limited. Each one can't be pushed to the side because of their age. There's more to behavior, and there's more to missions than just a third world country. Each one has something powerful to show us, and each one has something to teach us about who God is and how we can glorify the kingdom of God. Each require being intentional, to being loving, and to be kind to each other. Because once we do that, then we change who we are and we change who the next person is. They bring out the best in us, they bring out the good, and they bring out who we should be. These past few months I've been feeling very convicted. I've been looking only at the bad in people. I've been seeing all their wrongs and not their goods. The way we view God's children is so important. The way we view each other is very important, not just for the person we're viewing, but for us, for our own sake. In Honduras, I overheard a conversation between this lady telling another person that she was someone specialized in special needs education, behavioral education, and also a missionary. And I was like, I have to meet this woman. So her name is Ashley Youngblood, and I had the chance to have an interview with her. Getting there, I just asked questions about missions, everything with the behavioral, special needs, and how we can love better. One thing she told me that she says she prays for every single day before coming into contact with someone. She says, Lord, let me see these kids through your eyes. That prayer hit me really hard because I'm like, I see kids or different people very differently just because of the wrongs they do, or what they did last week, or what they did this weekend. That's one of the most important prayers we could pray as a Christian. It's one of the most important prayers we can pray, to be intentional with each other, to be loving with each other, and to be showing who God is and reflecting who He is. Looking back throughout high school, I was always looking at the wrong. You see, God looks at our good, so why can't we do the same to others? This semester, I worked with a TLC, and they're just full of joy. They're full of goodness, and it was so good to be with them because I feel like they helped me more than I helped them. As I started to work with them, I would tell people I was working with them, they're like, why are you working with them? They have people there to be with them. And it broke my heart to hear that. Just because their indifference is a little bit more noticeable, we push them to the side and we think we can't be associated with them. They have something to offer this world. You see, they're so secluded to their own little group that it's still full of joy, and they care for each other, and they're intentional with each other. And it's so good. It's so good to see, and it inspires me to be like the same with my relationships. You see, what we do is when we see something that is different, we don't want to associate with it because it's too different for us. We remove the good. We never see the beautiful because our pride and our arrogance is in the way. Growing up, my mom would always give her speech of the day heading to school. Usually they're the same speech of the day, so they weren't that special. She would say, You could do a million good things, but the one bad thing you do, someone's going to just going to focus on that. Again, it got really annoying hearing that. I'm like, Mom, I'm okay, like, I got it, right? Until it happens to you. Until people start to look at that one bad thing you did. I never realized the importance of that. I never realized that I wasn't loving well because of my pride and my arrogance, and I looked at that one bad thing. I didn't realize I wasn't loving well because I didn't see people as children of God. I need to love and not limit who I love, but I need to be loving all, and that is how we can love intentionally, seeing people through God's eyes. The way we love matters. How do we love well? One of the hardest questions I had to struggle with, I had to deal with in different ways. It's a bit of a sacrifice. But in Matthew 22:35-40 says, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to him, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest. The second is like it. You should love your neighbor as yourself. With the cost of loving one another is removing ourselves and putting others' needs first, and being intentional with each and every person we come in contact with. The effects of what intentionality can do to a person is so good, and it goes from one person to another to another. It's like a domino effect. Being intentional can change the person and can change the way they live. Being known and loved doesn't limit to only kids, but it affects the adults also. It doesn't limit to a certain type of person, to a certain religion, to a certain race, to a certain background. It goes to everyone. In Honduras, we were there for 7 days, and we were able to play with the kids. And yeah, not all of us spoke the same language, but it was so easy to love them. Even though there was barriers and those walls that hindered our way from loving them, we still found a way to love them. We loved with no language. But coming back, I found it extremely hard to love people. I had all the tools, and there was no barriers to love people, but I still couldn't. And that was my problem. The thing is, I don't love because I don't know how to love. My pride is in the way, my arrogance is blinding me. What I had to realize through some hardship, like hard times and different things, was that the intentionality brings out the best in people. And that is how we can love people. Is when we sit up straight, we listen, and we want to dive into being better people and being intentional with each other. We have to remove ourselves before anything else. Senior year, my focus was on myself, not who I could be better friends with, or not what relationship I could fix. Christ paid the ultimate sacrifice for us because he loved us so much. He didn't care what the cost was, but he still wanted to be with us. We should all strive to be like him when we're loving people. We should all strive to pay the cost no matter what it is to love people well. Loving has a cost, and we decide if the cost is worth it. Every time we would play with the kids in Rwanda, we would be dancing most of the time. In the sun, 3 hours straight. It was terrible at times. So I'd go down and sit down. But the kids would always come and grab us and tell us to come back. And it was just good. It was just good and heartwarming. Because they were so intentional with me. I was going there to be intentional with them, to help them. But they taught me more. They were intentional with me more. And each one has taught me something so special. So special. Ezra, Ruth, Richard, Riley, they all taught me something and how to love people well. We intentionally loved each other, and that was good. And coming back, yeah, it was hard, but I hope I can become a better person to love people well. The way we love matters. We need to be intentional with everything we do, no matter the cost. So, before I'm done, while I was in Africa, I met this girl named Ruth, and they couldn't really say my name, so they called me Caroline. And so they have really good English. So she wrote me this letter. Dear Caroline, how are you? I wrote this letter to you to tell you about my love to you. I love you with all my heart. You are beautiful as a sunset or a rainbow. I love you too. I love you so much. I will never forget your smile. I will never and ever forget you. Do you have any other siblings? Do you love me? I wish I would know your parents and your friends and your school. You know how to dance well. I love your dance as well, and I love to know about you. Do you have any picture of your family? Who is your best friend from school? Which subject do you love the most? I will love you with all my heart, and I will never forget you. I love you. Sorry, wait, don't cry. Just reading that is like so heartwarming because they're so intentional with us. Sorry. And it's so good to be intentional with people. And there's importance to it. So thank you.